It's time for America Outdoors Radio, the show that covers the outdoor scene across the U.S. of A. and the entire continent. Fishing, hunting, conservation, outdoor recreation, and great destinations. We cover it all every week. It's your country, your outdoors. Let's explore it together with your host, John Cruz.
Welcome to the show. I've got to share a fascinating story I read in the Alaska Daily News this past week about bowhead whales and how long-lived they can be. Bowhead whales, if you didn't know, are found in the Bering, Chukchi, and Beaufort Seas near the Arctic, and Eskimos have hunted them for over 1,000 years and continue to do so today, harvesting some 40 whales per year for subsistence purposes. The whales grow to a length of 60 feet in size and can weigh up to 120,000 pounds. Recently, a biologist was helping a native whaler clean a harvested bowhead when they found a stone harpoon tip in the whale that may well have been a century old. In the last 10 years, ivory harpoon heads with metal blades have been found in harvested whales, suggesting some of these animals could be over 100 years old. So, a study was done using 48 frozen bowhead whale eyeballs, of all things, taken from whales harvested between 1978 and 1997. Most of the whales were found to be 20 to 60 years old when they died, but 5 males were much older. One was 91, one 135, one 159, one 172 years, and the oldest whale was 211 years old at the time of its death. That whale was gliding through the Bering and Beaufort Seas when Thomas Jefferson was president. This would make bowhead whales the longest living mammals in the world. Interesting stuff. We've got a great show for you this week, and part of it will come from Alaska, where well-known outdoors writer Scott Haugen will tell you about catching sheefish under the ice near Kotzebue. Don't know what a sheefish is? Join the club. Having said that, I think you're going to be pretty impressed by these fish after Scott tells you about them, and you may want to put them on your bucket list. Somebody else we'll be talking to is John McAdams with Big Game Hunting Adventures. This company offers the hunting adventures of a lifetime. You can choose from a plains animal hunting safari in South Africa, the chance to bag a Cape buffalo or even a leopard in Mozambique, big black bears on the Quinault Indian Reservation in southwest Washington, or sheep, moose, and caribou in the far north reaches of British Columbia. You are definitely going to want to hear more about this. We've got a whole bunch of record fish to tell you about that have been caught around the country recently, and we'll also share the story of Seth Alexander with you. He's a young man who lost his hearing, but thanks to a cochlear implant, has regained that hearing and has taken up the sport of mountain climbing. Seth will tell you about summiting Mount Rainier in Washington and what peaks he plans to summit next year. But before we get any further into the show, I've got to ask, do you remember our conversation with Pennsylvania hunting guide and author Michael Huff about coyotes? That was a fascinating chat last week. So much so that we've invited Michael to come back on the air with us again this week to tell us more about these incredible and adaptable predators. We're talking to Michael Huff again on America Outdoors Radio. He's the author of Understanding Coyotes, the comprehensive guide for hunters, photographers, and wildlife observers. He hails out of Pennsylvania, and he's actually a coyote and fox hunting guide. Michael, welcome back to the show.
Great to be here, John. Thank you for having me.
Michael, last week we talked about these fascinating animals. Call them coyotes, call them coyotes, depending on what part of the country you live in. We talked about how well they see, how well they smell, and what it means to you as a hunter or an outdoors photographer. Let's talk about their hearing. How good is their hearing? I suspect it's pretty darn good.
Yeah, coyotes have definitely good hearing, but of their senses, it probably doesn't compare to their sense of smell. Generally, humans and coyotes are going to hear very close on the lower pitched sounds of the spectrum. Humans are going to go down to about 20 hertz, it's called, and coyotes 40. But where coyotes really excel when it comes to their hearing is at the higher frequency ranges. Human beings will hear up to something called 20,000 hertz. Again, that's just a measure of a sound. And the higher up you go in the spectrum, the higher the pitched noise it is. whereas coyotes will far surpass us, and they will go all the way up to 60,000 hertz. So generally, coyotes are going to hear at much higher frequencies that we can't even hear, and that's, of course, why they're hearing the mice under the snow, and they're able to hunt so successfully very quiet creatures that we struggle to hear ourselves because of their high pitches.
So what does this mean to a hunter, especially when they're trying to call in a coyote?
You know, I have to tell you that of all the things over the years that I've analyzed in myself that's made me a better coyote hunter, it might surprise a lot of people, but the most important thing to my success has been getting in quietly. Coyote hearing is something I worry about more than smell or anything. They have ears that, if you look at the shape of them, they're cone-shaped. They can independently rotate. And those coyotes, they're just sitting out there, and they know everything going on. They're listening constantly. So if you're a hunter, the first thing that I think, or a photographer, when I take photos too, the first thing that you need to really focus in on is how can you get in quietly. When I'm guiding somebody, if I have a dark, wet night, my chances, I think, just went up about 200% because
Wow.
They are constantly listening, something that's often overlooked when people think of coyotes. They often focus on their smelling.
That is very interesting. And something else that was interesting to me, and you cover this, is the diet of a coyote. I think a lot of people assume that, they're just eating, livestock calves, they're eating, small deer, fawns, but that's not true. Very, very varied diet.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. I have in my book a study that was done out in lava beds in California, and there's probably over 50 different items that they analyze in coyote stomach. But, yeah, the interesting part is, if you look at a bobcat's 99.9% carnivore. All they eat is meat, and the vegetation is just to digest the meat. But coyotes and fox, boy, they eat everything. They'll go out on the night, and if it's raining out and some earthworms, they'll run down streets and lick earthworms off the streets. They absolutely love fruit. I often will scout in my part of the country around raspberry bushes, and you find a lot of coyotes scat. I mean, they'll turn down meat many times if fruit's available. They have such a varied diet. Of course, they'll eat grasshoppers and insects and any type of meat. They'll eat mice, rabbit, deer, carrion, pretty much everything. One thing I found, though, is that they don't quite eat quite as much human foods as people think. A lot of the research studies have shown that they really, if they don't need to eat human waste foods and people put out dog food and that kind of stuff, they really don't. They prefer wild food, and pretty much anything that's out there, a coyote's going to eat.
Well, there you go. Just a few more amazing facts about the coyote. If you want to buy Michael's book, Understanding Coyotes, or Coyotes, however you want to pronounce it, depending on where you live in the country, it's Understanding Coyotes, the comprehensive guide for hunters, photographers, and wildlife observers. It's by Michael Huff. Look for it at Amazon.com. Fascinating, absolutely fascinating book about these fascinating animals. It'll help you out whether you're a hunter or a wildlife watcher or a photographer, help you get a lot closer to these animals. Michael, thanks for telling us again more stuff about coyotes on America Outdoors Radio.
My pleasure. Thank you, John.
I'll tell you what, folks, Michael Huff, he really knows his stuff. And that book, by the way, it's a great read. Again, Understanding Coyotes by Michael Huff. Well worth the money if you want to find out more about these wily animals, whether you're a hunter, an outdoor photographer, or just interested in coyotes. By the way, Michael is also a fox hunting guide, and I suspect we're going to be having him back on the show soon to talk about that. Stick around. In just a couple of minutes, we'll be talking to John McAdams with Big Game Hunting Adventures, offering unforgettable hunting for all sorts of big game in North America and Africa. John's hunts sound absolutely incredible.
Jim Houston for Duncan B. Lodge, where the Duncan B difference means more than just a fishing trip. Oh, there's spectacular fishing for salmon and halibut like few places in the world, but the setting makes your camera as important as a fishing rod. And in Duncanby Lodge, the vacation is yours. Catch the early morning bite or just catch some rays on the dock. Dine at your leisure and enjoy the beauty of Rivers Inlet. Book for this summer or next and enjoy a tour at Duncanby.com.
Do you long to hunt Africa's most dangerous big game? Big Game Hunting Adventures offers that. Hunting free-range Cape buffalo in some of the wildest untamed country left on the continent. You'll be the only hunting party tracking free-range buffalo on 160,000 acres of land where the borders of Mozambique, South Africa, and Zimbabwe meet. They include pickup at Johannesburg International Airport, and they're among the most affordable you'll find in all of Africa. Book your safari today at BigGameHuntingAdventures.com.
Service is always cheaper than repair. That's a truism from Ken Estes at Cascade Marine Center in Portland, Oregon. Go ahead and drop by and see Cascade Marine for all of the parts, accessories, and honest advice you need to keep your boat and motor running. No one wants to be the guy plugging the boat ramp up because his boat doesn't start. So head down to Cascade Marine Center in Portland or give them a call or check out their website at CascadeMarineCenter.com.
Tom and Jerry's Boat Center in Mount Vernon is Washington's largest Hughes Craft and Kingfisher aluminum boat dealer. As a leader in sales, service, and fun on the water, Tom and Jerry's only purpose is to make sure you end up with the right boat for your family's needs at a price that will make you smile. Whether it's a new Hughes Craft or Kingfisher or a new Yamaha or Honda outboard, Tom and Jerry's can take care of all your needs. Check us out at tomandjerrys.net, and we'll see you on the water.
You're back with America Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. This portion of the show is brought to you by California Sportsman Magazine. It is the monthly magazine that covers the hunting and fishing scene throughout the state of California. If you live in California, look for it at a newsstand near you. We are not talking about California today. No, we're a lot more exotic than that. We're talking to John McAdams with Big Game Hunting Adventures. He offers hunts, well, you might say around the globe. John, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, John, let's go ahead and go through. There's basically 4 places that you offer hunts in, and we'll start in Africa because I think that's pretty much everyone's bucket list. South Africa, what sort of hunts are you offering there?
Sure. So South Africa, our big specialty there is plains game, and no other country in the world can really compare with both the quality and the variety of plains game that we have there. Now, plains game, that term is very broadly encompassing. There's a lot of different animals that could be considered plains game. Kudu, eland, impala, zebra, basically just about any animal that you can think of in Africa that's not dangerous game like buffalo or a lion or something is probably could be considered plains game. So there's very, very large populations of, like I said, a wide variety of plains game in South Africa. We hunt over 30 different species of plains game in South Africa. And in particular, kudu, waterbuck, impala, eland, and nyala, blesbuck, wildebeest, and zebra are kind of our specialties there. And we also have some very good Cape buffalo hunting as well in South Africa.
When it comes to these hunts, John, are we talking all-inclusive in terms of airfare, lodging, food, and how many days are we talking here?
So really it varies. So you can do it one of two ways. One, we make some custom-made packages that have a lot of the most common and most in-demand animals all lumped into one right there. And about as short of a package as you want to go over there is 5 days. 7 to 10 days is more common for plains game, depending, like I said, on what it is that you want. For instance, we have a 7-day hunt, kudu, zebra, wildebeest, blesbuck, springbuck, and warthog. Includes everything basically but your airfare and your taxidermy for $7,250 right now.
That's pretty good. That's actually a pretty good price for an African safari.
Really, you're right. And so African hunts, a lot of people, I think, kind of have an idea that they're a whole lot more expensive than they actually are. Now, like a buffalo or a lion hunt or something like that, those get very expensive very quickly. But plains game, like we just discussed right there, an all-inclusive hunt for 6 animals comes out very favorably to, say, what you would pay for like a fully guided out-of-state elk hunt somewhere in the United States just for one animal like that.
No, absolutely. And South Africa is not the only place in Africa you hunt. You also offer hunts in Mozambique. What kind of hunts are you offering there?
So our specialty in Mozambique is buffalo and a little bit of leopard there. Now, our place in Mozambique, it's a great place. It's right on the border, right where all the borders of Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and South Africa come together. So it's in southwestern Mozambique. And that is very close to Kruger Park and the Gonarezu National Park in Zimbabwe. So lots and lots of game there. And that's wild Africa, what you really think of there. If someone wants an Ernest Hemingway type safari, this part of Mozambique is really what you're looking for. You'll stalk the buffalo during the day, and then at night you'll hear lions and leopards, making their noise. It's really cool, and there's nothing like it in the world.
Oh, it sounds incredible.
This has some of the best buffalo hunting that there is in southern Africa, and also there's some very good leopard hunting there as well. We got a really big resident herd of buffalo that are there all the time, and then many more come and go throughout the year as kind of the seasons change like that. So like I said, buffalo is our main specialty right there, and then we hunt one leopard a year on this place, and since the hunting pressure is so low there, because we only hunt one a year, there's some really big cats, 170, 180 plus pounds. Now the really, really nice part about this is that there's no charter flight necessary to get there. You fly directly from the United States into Johannesburg in South Africa. We'll pick you up there and then drive straight to the hunting area in Mozambique. Now, that means it is both faster and cheaper overall for your travel to get to this hunting area than any other comparable hunt in Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Namibia, or Tanzania, like that. And so, like I said, not only is the hunting there absolutely outstanding, but it's one of the easiest places to get that sort of really wild, isolated hunt like that for free-range buffalo.
Well, John, it sounds fantastic. And folks, you're listening to America Outdoors Radio. We're talking to John McAdams with Big Game Hunting Adventures. His website is biggamehuntingadventures.com. We've been talking about African safaris for all sorts of different animals. But let's head back to North America. I was surprised, given the fact that you're offering African safaris, that you're also offering hunts on the Quinault Indian Reservation. That's in southwest Washington State, up by the Olympic Peninsula. I'm guessing we're talking bear or Roosevelt elk or both.
So bear is the only animal that non-tribal members can hunt on the reservation there.
Okay.
And basically what happened was the timber logging is a big industry there on the reservation, and the bears were peeling the bark off the trees and eating them, and so they were losing lots and lots of trees to these bears, and so they opened up bear hunting to non-tribal members, so you can hunt with an outfitter on the reservation for bear over bait. And that's what makes it unique, because it's the only place in the state of Washington where you can legally hunt bears over bait.
Yes. Yes, it is. And you're going to be hunting with a tribal guide in this situation, aren't you?
That is exactly correct, yes.
All right. And folks, the black bear in the Quinault Indian Reservation, they are known to be much bigger than black bear you're going to find in most places in the Northwest. And speaking of the Northwest, one other place you offer hunting is in British Columbia.
Yeah, so that's exactly right. So our hunting area up there in northern British Columbia is about 3,000 square miles in the extreme northern part of British Columbia, right on the border with the Yukon Territory. The main thing that we do up there is moose and caribou hunt. Historically, we got about a 90% success rate for people that go on a moose caribou hunt. They'll get either one of them, so 90% will get one or the other, and about 80% will get both a moose and a caribou.
Nice.
Last year, we were 21 for 23 on moose, and everyone that didn't get one either missed their shot or decided not to take a shot on a nice bull. So great hunting there for moose as well as caribou. And then additionally, we got some very good hunting for stone sheep and mountain goat. Last year, we went 3 for 4 on stone sheep, 38 inches on average. Every now and then, we get some over 40 inches, and I think our average sheep up there is about 10 and a quarter years old. So you got some really nice, really old rams that we take up there.
Well, we are running out of time, but folks, if you want to find out more about hunting in South Africa and Mozambique, the Quinault Indian Reservation in Washington State, or in the far north of British Columbia, go to BigGameHuntingAdventures.com. The website again, BigGameHuntingAdventures.com. We're just scratching the surface on what are truly some once-in-a-lifetime adventures, so go ahead and check it out. John, thanks for telling us all about this on America Outdoors Radio.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me. And before I leave, I'm going to be at the Washington Sportsman Show January 25 to 29 at the State Fairgrounds, booth 451. So stop by and see me. I'll be happy to talk to you about any of these hunts.
Sounds fantastic, and I will see you there as well, John.
Hey, look forward to it. Thanks for having me.
Do you long to hunt Africa's most dangerous big game? Big Game Hunting Adventures offers that. Hunting free-range Cape buffalo in some of the wildest untamed country left on the continent. You'll be the only hunting party tracking free-range buffalo on 160,000 acres of land where the borders of Mozambique, South Africa, and Zimbabwe meet. They include pickup at Johannesburg International Airport, and they're among the most affordable you'll find in all of Africa. Book your safari today at BigGameHuntingAdventures.com.
Frontier Tactical's Warlock multiple caliber system allows you to retrofit your AR-15 rifle to shoot up to 60 different calibers with the same upper and lower receiver. The Warlock is compatible with most off-the-shelf AR-15 components, which means you get to build your rifle the way you want to. Whether you're into predator hunting, hog hunting, deer hunting, or self-defense, the Warlock multiple caliber system lets you do it all. Find out more about this innovative, made in the USA product at FrontierTactical.com. You're back with America Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. This portion of the show is brought to you by the Alaska Sporting Journal. It is the monthly magazine that covers fishing, hunting, and more in the great state of Alaska. Look for it at a newsstand near you. Speaking of Alaska, we've got a really unique topic that we're going to bring to you this week. We're talking to Scott Haugen, very well-known outdoors writer who's been in the business for a long time, and he's been fishing for sheefish in Alaska. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thanks, John. It's nice to be back with you.
Scott, sheefish. I know nothing about these fish at all. Tell me about them.
Well, you know, they're an interesting fish, and it's funny, even a lot of people that you run into in Alaska, you know, haven't heard of these fish. They run in a pretty small area of western and southwest Alaska, and in the years my wife and I lived up in the Arctic, you know, I was really intrigued with these things. Of course, we caught grayling and Arctic char and, you know, lake trout through the ice up there where we lived on the North Slope, but these sheefish always intrigued me, and I got to fish for them in the summer in southwest Alaska here, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, and, you know, they're called the tarpon of the north, and they're just an amazing, you know, fish, up to 30, 40, 50 pounds, and these things just take off like rockets, whether you're fishing them with gear or with flies, you know, multiple jumps, very, very strong fish, and a lot of fun, and I'd eaten it before, too, when I was up there on the trap line. I used to run a big wolf trap line up there, and I swapped a guy who I met from another village. He had sheefish meat, and I had dollfish meat, and of course we both thought we got the better end of that deal, so they're a very good eating fish as well. But then this last spring I had the opportunity to hook up with a buddy who lives in Kotzebue, and we went fishing through the ice for these things, and I thought, holy cow, you know, if you can imagine catching a tarpon through the ice, here's a fish that has this notoriety for making long runs and for jumping, you know, what's it going to be like drilling a hole through 5 feet of ice and trying to, you know, hand line this thing or fight it on a little ice fishing rod, and well, it was more exciting than I even thought it was going to be.
Well, I'll bet it was. So that's a great question. How is the fight under the ice?
they're strong. It's long. It's a hard fight. It's some of the locals there, when they're going out and fishing, they're just jigging with their nixick, which is just something that the local Inupiat people make right there. They'll make it out of a piece of wood or traditionally caribou antler or beluga whale rib bone, and they'll get like a 200 or 300 pound dacron line and tie their spoon to it and just start jigging. And so when they're out there, catching these things, they're the bite's on and they're trying to yard them out of those holes. And I went up there and I wanted to do a little bit more on the sport fishing side. I took my son up there. He is 14 years old, had just turned 14, so he was having a good time. And we'd go out and we'd drill through 5 feet of ice is what the depth was at that time, and just traveling around the sound there looking for fish. And those ice holes, they're kind of like glass. They're really sharp on the top end and sharp on the bottom end. So you want a good strong fishing line, a good strong braid that's not going to have any abrasions or break on that ice and when it's rubbing up against it. Because some of those fights on the little specialized fishing rods with the rod and reel, they were up to 10 minutes long with multiple runs. And
wow.
I don't know if they were trying to jump or not under there, but boy, they were sure making some long runs.
Wow. What kind of spoons were you using in terms of the type of spoon and the color of the spoon and the size?
Yeah, they're just it's just a jigging spoon that they have up there. It's about a 5-inch spoon that has a treble hook on it. Some have some flashaboo tied onto them right there. I also did really good jigging a 1-ounce rooster tail. Just jigging that up and down. The red and white combination seemed to be really good there too. So basically anything flashy. These are a predatory fish. So any type of minnow imitation. There are a couple stores you can go to there in Kotzebue and pick those things up, and I can't remember the brand name off the top of my head, but they're basically a big spoon that these things are getting after. A lot of the locals will take, once they catch a she-fish, they'll cut a little section of meat right underneath the lower jaw of the fish that they've previously caught, and cut about an inch long section and put that on the hook for scent and some added movement as well. So we're putting scents on there. Procure has a line of ice fishing scents that we tested out up there, and I was impressed with that too. So again, they're predatory fish. They travel in schools, and the neat thing is once the bite hits, and it's going to turn on and get ready, because you'll be catching fish nonstop for our bite lasted over an hour and a half there. So it can be a long couple days hunting for these things, but once you find the school, it's well worth the effort.
Wow, sounds like an absolute blast. So table fare, how you said they were good, but how are you cooking them, and how do they taste? They're an amazingly good fish. A very high oil content. They reminded me a lot of a spring Chinook or salmon that people get on the Nushagak or some of the rivers out there in Southwest. Just a very good fish. Our favorite way to actually eat it was smoked, just because of this high oil content. Sure.
But we Tiffany cooked them up a bunch of different ways. Did some baked. Threw some on the barbecue as well. Plain cooked them, and when you have a fish with that much fat content, I think I might even be able to cook one up and make it taste good. So they're a really good eating fish.
All right. Well, she-fish in Alaska, who would have thunk? Let's turn our attention to some holiday gift suggestions. I know you are always writing books and producing content. Do you have anything that people might want for the holidays?
You can never go wrong with a cookbook, and my wife Tiffany has a line of cookbooks that were basically written for people in the Pacific Northwest and Alaska. She has a cooking big game book, which is great. Cooking game birds book. She just came out with her latest one is a cooking seafood book, and she has a lot of years of trial and error in developing all of her own recipes, and those make great books. Also, I have a couple different books on Alaska. One is our adventure story, still my favorite book I've written, and of all the books we've written, I guess my wife and I think we have 20-some between the two of us now. So it's called Hunting the Alaskan High Arctic. It's just an adventure story of my subsistence time living up in Alaska. This is where we could get 4 Dall sheep a year on subsistence license up in the village of Anatuvik Pass where we lived. It has the story of the man-eating polar bear I tracked down and got in Point Lay, and just a lot of other just modern-day hunting adventures up with indigenous cultures and the peoples of the Arctic. We have that, and then I have my Fly Fishing Alaska book, which is basically a where-to book, not necessarily just restricted to how to fly fish in Alaska, but where to go. It's the most comprehensive fly fishing book that I know of that's put together. And then we also started a booking service here recently. So the she fishing trip we talked about, we're booking for multiple places there, be it the summer or this springtime through the ice, and all these things can be found on our website, my website, which is just scotthaugen.com.
All right, and what is Tiffany's website?
Tiffany is tiffanyhaugen.com, and all her orders, all her cookbooks are on my website as well, so it'll link right back to mine. But yeah, if you want to check out her blog, also has a lot of great recipes, things she's put together from our travels to Alaska, and I think we're up there 5 times again this year. And of course, we lived up there through most of the 90s as well. So a lot of good free information on her blog, and yeah, you can check that out to her same website there, tiffanyhaugen.com.
All right, the websites to go to again are scotthaugen.com or tiffanyhaugen.com. Haugen spelled Haugen.
Yep, Haugen.
Scott, always a pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks so much for this great information about she-fish in Alaska.
Hey, thank you, John. Keep up the good work.
That's Scott Haugen, folks. And I'll tell you what, Scott and his wife, Tiffany, as a matter of fact, their entire family, really nice people, very approachable. You can take in some of their seminars and meet Scott and Tiffany at their booths that they will have at the Pacific Northwest Sportsman Show in Portland or the Washington Sportsman Show in Puyallup. That takes place in January of every year. The other thing about these two is that they really do everything that they talk about. As you heard from Scott, he and Tiffany, they lived in Alaska. They were basically doing subsistence living. They are the real deal, and I would urge you to support them by buying their books, not just because they're great people, but because they put out some really good stuff, whether it be the cooking side that Tiffany puts out or the hunting side and the fishing side that Scott puts out. Check out their websites. Again, it's tiffanyhaugen.com and scotthaugen.com. You won't regret it. Stick around. We've got a whole lot more of the outdoors coming up on America Outdoors Radio.
Sitka Point Lodge and Fishing Charters offers the premier fishing lodge experience. They offer all-inclusive fishing and lodging packages for king salmon, halibut, and rockfish. In addition to great fishing, you'll enjoy gourmet meals, first-class service, and understand why 80% of their clients are return customers that arrive as a guest and leave as a friend. Book your Alaska fishing trip now at Sitka Point Lodge by calling 888-747-7406 or go to sitkapointcharters.com.
Oregon's Tillamook Bay is considered the greatest fishing experience on the West Coast for fall Chinook salmon and winter steelhead, and Dungeness crab is plentiful. 5 major rivers connect with the ocean on the Tillamook coast. It's not unusual to snag a 40 to 50 pounder. Go out in a boat or stand on a riverbank or dock. Try fishing from a dory boat and experience the thrill of a beach launch and landing. Use spinners, sand shrimp, or salmon eggs to lure them. The fish will line up to grab your bait. Go to tillamookcoast.com/fishing to find guides and places to stay.
Jim Hewson inviting you on a West Coast wilderness vacation to Duncanby Lodge. From the moment you fly right to the dock, you'll notice the Duncanby difference. It's your vacation. Fish on your own or with a guide, catch the bite when you're ready. No set meal times here. Dine off an extensive menu when you want. And this, in a setting just off the entrance to Majestic Rivers Inlet. Come on up this summer and enjoy a few days where time, date, and currency mean absolutely nothing. Check us out at duncanby.com.
Looking for the safest, most stable riding boat on the market? Welcome to Stabicraft. Born in New Zealand, Stabicraft has a built-in reputation for making the most seaworthy boats on the market. Heavy-gauge aluminum chambered boats with models ranging from 14 to 29 feet in a variety of configurations to suit all your needs. Check out the all-new 2750 center cab, a walk-around design for the Northwest market, and packed with industry-leading features to suit all types of fishing, allowing you to adventure with confidence. Book a test ride today at stabicraft.com.
Tom and Jerry's Boat Center in Mount Vernon is Washington's largest Hughes Craft and Kingfisher aluminum boat dealer. As a leader in sales, service, and fun on the water, Tom and Jerry's only purpose is to make sure you end up with the right boat for your family's needs at a price that will make you smile. Whether it's a new Hughes Craft or Kingfisher or a new Yamaha or Honda outboard, Tom and Jerry's can take care of all your needs. Check us out at tomandjerrys.net, and we'll see you on the water.
Did you check out this month's edition of Northwest Sportsman Magazine? If you didn't, you're missing out, because it's the best publication out there that covers the fishing and hunting scene, not only in Washington State, but in the entire Northwest. Northwest Sportsman Magazine has got great writers and great content you need to have to be successful. Northwest Sportsman Magazine is the publication for you. Find out more at nwsportsmanmag.com or pick up a copy at a newsstand near you. You're back with America Outdoors Radio, and this portion of the show is brought to you by Northwest Sportsman Magazine. It is the monthly magazine that covers the outdoor scene throughout the greater Northwest. Look for a copy at a newsstand near you in Washington, Idaho, Montana, and Oregon. We've got big fish reports from all over the nation. Lots of records being caught. From the News and Observer, we learn about a record snapper caught by a galley hen near Atlantic Beach in North Carolina. On most days, Randall Harmon works in the galley aboard the Captain Stacy IV, a party boat that docks in Atlantic Beach. However, he is such a dedicated fisherman that he fishes whenever he gets the chance. Harmon was actually fishing on his boss's boat on his day off with about 20 other anglers when he hooked into what he thought was either a grouper or a sand tiger shark. It wasn't, though. It was a monstrous Cubera snapper that weighed 58 pounds, which is 11 pounds more than the previous North Carolina state record. Now that is a memorable way to enjoy your day off from work. A very different record fish was caught out of the Snake River in Wyoming. From the Jackson Hole News and Guide, we found out 13-year-old Connor Weeks has caught a state record Utah chub minnow. Connor was fishing the Snake River near Jackson Lake Dam on October 23rd when he caught the 1-pound, 15-ounce fish. If you've never heard of a Utah chub before, you're in good company. It's a non-game, seldom targeted species. There are a few fishermen with their eyes on chubs that head to Jackson Lake in the springtime when the bait fish is spawning, but according to fisheries biologist Diana Miller, that's about it. For a minnow, though, they can get plenty big. Chubs pulled out of Bear Lake along the Idaho-Utah state line have measured nearly 2 feet long and weighed close to 3.5 pounds. That, my friend, is a whale of a minnow. In California, there was a story in the Union Democrat about a huge largemouth bass caught this month. It was a 19-pounder that is the new lake record at Lake Chabot and the largest bass taken out of the Bay Area lakes. The angler, Ryan Reynolds of San Mateo. Oh, and in case you were wondering what the current California state record bass is, it's a 21-pound, 12-ounce giant reeled in from Castaic Lake in 1991. And finally, from the Outdoor Hub, we've got one heck of a monster fish story. This one happened at California's Lower Otay Lake to angler Noy Valenesane. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing the last name there. Noy was fishing in a bass tournament. He was using 8-pound test line on a spinning reel. He was casting a 4-inch swim bait, and his choice of tackle attracted something he didn't expect. Noy hooked into a blue catfish that ended up crushing the previous lake record. The fish weighed 103 pounds, and he caught it on 8-pound test line. The epic battle lasted an hour. The fish was subject to a short photo shoot, and then Noy released it back into the water to fight another day or possibly grow even bigger. Noy's catch goes down as the second largest blue catfish caught in San Diego County. The California state record still stands with a 113-pound blue catfish caught in 2008. Next up on America Outdoors Radio, we're talking to a young man, Seth Alexander from Redmond, Washington. He's an interesting fellow. By day, he works for some software tech companies in the greater Seattle area, but during his off time, he climbs mountains around the Northwest, which is an interesting hobby, but it becomes much more interesting when you realize that Seth is hearing impaired. Seth, welcome to the show.
Hey, John. Thanks for having me on.
So, Seth, we'll just ask this right out of the box. Your hearing impairment, when did this occur? Were you born hearing impaired, or is this something that happened or was diagnosed later in life?
I wasn't born hearing impaired. I remember hearing quite well as a child. I wasn't diagnosed until around 12 years old. At that point, it just kind of degenerated slowly up until 25.
And did it get to the point where you basically could hear very little by the time you were 25?
Yes. I was working at Microsoft at the time, and I couldn't do meetings that are more than one person. I couldn't use the phone. It was a struggle every day.
Sure. So, however, thanks to technology that we have today, you've been able to overcome this impairment through an implant. Tell our listeners about this.
Yeah. So when I had a hearing test when I was 25 to see if I was eligible, you do a test to see what your speech comprehension is without hearing aids, unaided, without lip reading, which was a big part of my comprehension. And my left ear was only at 2% comprehension. My right at 20%. So at that point, I'm like, I don't have much to lose by trying this out with my left ear. So let's give it a go and see what happens. And at first, I got it turned on after getting a cochlear implant, and all I heard were like wind chimes. You would say, "How are you?" and I would hear boop boop boop.
Oh, like, wow!
What have I done? It was crazy, but those are sounds that I have never heard for a very long time. So they're overwhelming everything else.
Wow, that is really interesting. So what is the difference between a cochlear implant, which you have, and just a hearing aid?
So a hearing aid amplifies whatever native hearing you have. So if you hear a sound that you are not really good at hearing, it will amplify it so that you can hear it better through your eardrum, your middle ear, and then your cochlea, which then sends a signal to your brain. A cochlear implant bypasses that by a small implant under the skin that communicates wirelessly to your cochlea. It just bypasses your middle ear and your eardrum. So in a sense, it replaces your native hearing instead of trying to utilize something that's just broken.
Fascinating. So let me ask you another question here. You are involved in the sport of climbing mountains in the Northwest. And is this something that you started after you got your cochlear implant, or is this something you've been doing for a long time?
It's actually post-implant. I didn't start until my cousin moved out here from Tennessee, and we started to do these hike-a-month things. And it just kind of, we really enjoyed it, getting gear and getting ready, and then, climbing bigger mountains.
So your implant, is this something that you can turn on and off, or is it always on?
It's something I can turn on and off. If I take them off my head, I can't hear anything whatsoever, which has its uses.
Well, and I was going to ask about that. When it comes to climbing mountains, are there pros and cons to hearing or not being able to hear?
I think there's some pros, and there's definitely cons. I'll start with cons. The cons, you have batteries, and you have to keep batteries with you. You bring quite a few of those. And once it starts, the batteries tend to not last too long. So you have to take into consideration of bringing some extra weight, so to speak, in batteries. But the pros I found when sleeping in a tent full of guys or a bunkhouse, it's much easier to sleep because I can't hear it. Or two, we slept on the side of Rainier, I think last year, and the winds picked up real bad at night, 40, 50 mile an hour winds, and you can feel the tent shaking, but you can't hear it. But I turned my ears on just to see what was going on, talk to them, see if my hiking mates were doing okay, and it sounded like a machine gun. It was the flapping in the wind. It's crazy sounding. I don't know how I got it into it.
Wow. So here's another question for you. Mount Rainier, you mentioned that, and I know that is your biggest achievement, and boy, what an achievement. It's the iconic mountain in Washington State, folks, if you're not aware of it. It's over 14,000 feet, and a lot of people try, but not a lot of people make it to the summit and back. I'm sure you felt on top of the world at that Mount Rainier summit moment, and you've certainly bagged a lot of other peaks up and down the I-5 corridor there in Washington State. What's next for you in terms of mountains you plan to summit?
Next year, we would like to do Helens and Adams, and then we're thinking about doing Rainier again, but this time without a guided group. And then in 2018, I have my eyes on Orizaba and Ixta, the Mexican volcanoes in Mexico City.
Wow. Well, sounds fantastic. Well, Mount St. Helens, not nearly as tall as it used to be, thanks to that eruption in 1980, but still a challenge. And as for Mount Adams, that's over 11,000 feet. That one's not easy either. So I wish you the best, but if you've summited Rainier, I have no doubt you'll be able to handle those. And climbing in Mexico sounds fantastic. Seth, is there a Facebook page or a website where people can follow your adventures?
I'm trying to think. So I have my Facebook site at Seth Alexander would be the easiest way to find me. Otherwise, on LinkedIn, that's my other social networking.
All right. We have got to go, but Seth, congratulations on overcoming some real difficulties in life and rising to the very top when it comes to the mountains here in the Northwest and beyond. I look forward to following your progress in the months ahead.
Thank you, John.
We hope you enjoyed this week's broadcast. If you get a chance, go to our Facebook page at America Outdoors Radio. Be sure to check out our website, too. It's AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com. You can find podcasts of past shows there, and you can also hear us on the internet at RenoViolaOutdoors.com. That's the home of WRVO Radio. We also hope you'll support our sponsors by buying some of the magazines they publish, to include the American Shooting Journal, California Sportsman Magazine, Northwest Sportsman Magazine, and the Alaska Sporting Journal. We've got to go, but I hope God is blessing you during this holiday season. Most of the year is in the rearview mirror, but there are still opportunities for solid fishing and hunting in the month of December, so get out there and enjoy it. Remember, it's your country and your outdoors.